Hello, one and all. Welcome back to the GeniusCast Season 3. Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, whatever time zone you're watching this in. So, last week was a banger of a start to this podcast. We interviewed Romanov, who's the dev of Juniors, that upcoming game, and also Eddie and the Misfits. And we had a good conversation. If you guys want to see that episode, you can look in the link in the description, or the iCards, or at the end of this video. And we are continuing today with the second episode. We're talking to my good friend, a.k.a. Squeaks D'Corgeh. I hope I pronounced that right.
Hey.
How you doing? Man?
Yeah, it's good pronunciation.
How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing all right. How about you?
I'm hanging in there. Been a long day, but
I get that.
For those who don't know, Squeaks, aka Adam. Do you want me to refer to you as Squeaks or Adam? What's your preference?
Squeaks works better. Most people know me as that.
Okay, we'll go with Squeaks. All right, so Squeaks, I've known Squeaks for a good long time. I'd say since 2017. He is the developer.
Yeah, very early 2017.
Right. He is the developer of PolarDread, the VR game that I've been playing recently. I did that on a stream and also did a separate video. If you guys want to watch those videos as well, also link in the description. And he also created the Breaking the Magic games, Breaking the Magic, Art of Animation, sketches, and then the old Dream Come True. He also made that newer Dream Come True. He made a week at Castaway Cay. He made all of those games. But what he's working on right now is PolarDread. So
yeah, that's my main focus.
And there's actually a lot of PolarDread questions later on, so we can we'll get to those at some point. But are you ready to dive in?
Yeah, definitely.
All right, here we go. Also, if you guys would like to take part in future GeniusCast episodes, the way I do this is I go on to social media and I drop a post on my YouTube community tab, on Twitter, and in my Discord server. So if you guys want to check all those out, Discord server link in the description. My Twitter link is in the description. Look out for the GeniusCast related posts talking about who I'm going to be interviewing. And if you have any questions that you'd like to ask, you can drop those in the replies to these posts. That's how you can have your questions included. All right, so let's dive in. We're going to start with our community tab post questions like we did last time. Our first one is from Shadow Jagger. He has two questions, and he says, the first one, how do you feel about your old games? My favorite was A Week at Castaway Cay Remastered.
Okay, bit mixed on that. I will say Breaking the Magic is the bane of my existence. I can tolerate Castaway Cay, but I'm not a huge fan of what it used to be. Since then, I've kind of reformed it into something new, but I don't know if I want to elaborate too much on that yet. Not a lot of people know about that aspect because it's still being worked on. But it's not exactly what it used to be. But I'm proud of what I've made with it, but I'm not proud of the old games and how they used to be. They're just not as good nowadays. They don't hold up.
I personally really liked the Breaking the Magic games, and there were, a ton of people also really enjoyed watching me play them. I mean, you remember those days.
Yeah.
But, for their time, you were, like 13 when you were first making those?
No, I first started working on games when I was about 10 years old. I released 2 Treasure Island games that never actually released. And then I started Castaway Cay when I was 11, and then that's also when I started the Breaking the Magic series.
Man. And gosh, that was years ago. So I think it was around, I would say, April of 2017 when I first played Breaking the Magic. That was right when you were releasing like alphas of that. And I remember, you commenting on, I can't remember what video I did, but
it was like an April Fool's video that you'd have like Fnaf 3 or something like that.
That was it. And you commented on it, and I was like, yo, like I've seen some gameplay of Breaking the Magic. I'd love to give it a try. And you were like, sure. And then you sent me the build to it, and just kind of snowballed from there.
Oh, totally.
But I had my fun with those, and it's pretty incredible to see how you've come all the way from those old Breaking the Magic games all the way to making virtual reality. Like that is that's impressive for a 5-year time span. So
yeah, totally.
But yeah, I'm really interested in seeing more of PolarDread and how you do with that, and more VR stuff that you make in the future. Because for anybody who does not know, I got my own VR headset, the Quest 2, as of recently, and I've been doing a lot of VR stuff, playing a ton of Beat Saber. I'm actually getting kind of decent at it, surprisingly. I actually did. I'm getting better at Crab Rave. I did Crab Rave on hard difficulty the other day. Got an A rank, almost S rank. And I did Fitbeat on hard difficulty, so I'm actually doing decently a Beat Saber. I might do a stream of that at some point to show people that I'm actually getting kind of good at it. So
yeah.
Anyways, Shadow Jagger's second question is, what are your thoughts on analog horror and VHS videos?
Okay, this was one that I saw earlier and actually was kind of hoping someone would ask about, because when I was talking about what I formed A Week at Castaway Cay into, it actually kind of became its own little analog horror VHS series on YouTube. It is called Broadside Beach, and it's basically like an old theme park kind of that used to. It's very similar to Disney in like some ways. It's got a similar kind of story, similar sort of management and everything. And people go missing on the island, who eventually end up as the costumes that were roaming around the island at certain points. And it's a whole branching story, but that actually stemmed from my older games, and it's highly inspired by things like the Walton Files and other VHS analog horror and all that. Yeah, it's nothing big right now. I think the biggest video on it has about like 4K views, which it's not much for this kind of analog horror stuff, but it's certainly something. Yeah, but yeah, I love that kind of stuff. I live for it, basically.
Cool. Yeah, I'll link that in the description for anybody who's interested in watching that. I'm sure the viewers here would be inclined to give it a try.
I'll warn you now, though, it's a bit like graphic and scary in some elements. So like,
all right, there's your warning, guys. If it scars you, and Adam gave you your warning.
You should see what happened when I showed it to PJ. He was silent for like a good 10 seconds after the deep fryer scene. So
oh, deep fryer. Oh boy. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, again, you've been warned. Watch at your own discretion. All right. This next one's from Razvan C. Atteld 2 Official. I hope I pronounced that right. What exactly inspired you to make PolarDread, and why did you want the game to be a VR game?
Okay, so I first started PolarDread as a concept, not even like as its own characters and everything. I started it as a parody game of a Great Wolf Lodge back in like 2017, and I was working on it alongside Breaking the Magic. The idea actually of this game stemmed before Breaking the Magic did technically, but I had been working on it on and off until eventually I just gave up on it for like a good long while around 2018. Never touched it again until around 2020. I was thinking of something I wanted to do because I really wanted to learn VR programming. I recently picked up Unreal Engine, and I was like, no, if I can take this idea and kind of like twist it into my own thing, maybe I can like have a bit of fun with it and port it into like a VR setting. So the reason I wanted to port it into VR in the first place is because I got myself an Oculus Rift like years ago, way back at the end of 2017. And I've always wanted to make a game with it, but I never really got the chance to until around 2020 when I started working on PolarDread, as it was known at the time, Sub-Zero, before I renamed it.
I remember those days. Yeah, I remember you were telling me about Sub-Zero. So
yeah, that was a long time ago, though. Like by now, I've actually the old Sub-Zero is a total mess. It doesn't even work on Quest. You have to run it on a PC, like VR version. So it was not very good, to say the least.
Well, this isn't a question anybody else asked, but this is something I'm actually curious about. What do you use to make games like PolarDread in VR? How does that work exactly?
Okay, so Unreal Engine, which is like Epic Games' public engine and everything, it actually has a lot of VR-based tools and everything. So a lot of the things you'll notice is that the player character that you play as is actually built using Unreal Engine, like its default VR template, but it uses a lot of my own elements. So the hands and everything that you see in the game were actually animated instead of just the Unreal open, close kind of snapping that it has. Mm-hmm. In this case, each finger is animated. When you grab an object, your fingers wrap around said object. And plus it has the custom force grabbing that the original template didn't have, but the foundation is the original template. So
the force grabbing is so cool. It feels so cool to like will objects to fly to you and grab it. I always feel so cool when I do that in PolarDread. Like I go, hiya, and grab the bottle of champagne.
That was actually the first thing that I coded in the game. Like I wanted to make it feel right, so I started with that first. Yeah.
And the force grabbing is definitely a good mechanic, because when you've got those two heads on the wall screaming, like, and you're out of stuff, like, in your reach, you gotta force grab it to you from the floor. But, yeah.
That was a problem with the original game, actually. I didn't know how to do force grabbing at the time, so players would just run out of objects, and they'd be stuck scrambling to find stuff off the floor. And it was a whole mess. I'm so glad I never continued it.
But I did prove that it's possible to beat Wednesday without shutting off the heads. I was able to...
If you have ears made of titanium, then maybe, but like...
Yeah,
You know?
that was a disaster because like I didn't realize because I didn't scroll through all the instructions for Wednesday night in the game, and it tells you that you got to throw something at it to shut them off.
Yeah.
And I forgot I didn't read that, so I didn't know that's what I had to do. I thought I maybe had to shine the flashlight at it or something, but then I played the entire night with just the entire night. It's just like, oh my god, rest in peace anybody's eardrums who was watching that stream, man.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I felt so embarrassed watching the entire stream and watching you just play without like shutting off the heads or anything.
You don't have to be embarrassed. That was my fault. I didn't read the instructions. So it's my fault, not yours.
I should say though, I did actually add in a little thing at the end of that, like at the tutorial of that night now, where if you look up, it says press trigger again, because I forgot to add it the first time around.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that stream did make me add that in, luckily.
Well, hey, at least it was something that had you add something in. So
Yeah, that's true.
okay, our next one is from Wiley Dog. He says, figured that I'd ask 2 questions. The first one is, what were some plans that were going to be included from Dream Come True, the Breaking the Magic 4 version, before it got canceled? Any scrapped content or anything?
Okay, so I know that I had a bit of like scrap content shown in the extras menu of the new Dream Come True, but I remember one thing that I planned, which is so ironic now that I think about it. The game would have ended with the player dying from like a pipe leakage that also wipes out all the tunes and everything, which in hindsight it is the most ironic ending I could have possibly chosen.
Also really dark, because isn't the player in that particular version of the game like a child? Wasn't that the plan?
I remember like, yeah, there was like a flashlight that had like a child's flashlight, but it was actually like an adult that was just kind of like using whatever he could find in the room.
Oh, I thought I remember you telling me that you played as a child in that game. I guess you changed that.
I don't actually remember that. That must have been like a while ago then. I don't know.
Yeah, that would have been
like,
super dark if, like, at the end of the game, like, everything dies, including the player who is also a child.
Though, I will say, it's ironic, though, because the game was actually canceled due to leaks. Like, all the models and everything getting leaked out.
I was there for that. I remember all that.
Yeah, that was such a nightmare. Like,
but hey, it turned into a more interesting game, if you ask me, with the whole, like, Dream Come True cruise ship type deal.
Yeah,
so.
and funny enough, that Dream Come True is also like another thing that's being recycled for the new series that's based off of. So like episode 3 is actually called Dream Come True, and it actually does take place on a boat. I don't want to say too much about it yet, but that's what I've planned so far for it.
Gotcha. All right. Well, let's all keep that in mind. All right. So Wiley Dog, second question is, what is your biggest goal for your current games like PolarDread?
Okay. My main goal with PolarDread is that I want to be able to give players like a good experience that's similar to Fnaf VR, but also different in some ways. Like, I want to make it more physically engaging, more just fun in general. Because the reason I actually started working on Sub-Zero or PolarDread now in the first place is because I really badly wanted my own. Like, I never really liked Fnaf VR like Help Wanted. I always thought it was just kind of subpar. So I wanted to kind of do my own version of it that would kind of play a little more fun the way I would have liked it to play. And that's kind of how it ended up. So,
gotcha.
I want to be able to kind of do something more fun with the idea. Wait, sorry, I cut you off. Sorry.
No, that's fine. I was about to say, like, I'm actually going to play Fnaf VR probably tonight after we're done with this recording. So I will see. I'll judge for myself how the game is. I've heard it's good, so we'll see how I enjoy it. All right, this next one's from Austin Tranquilli. What do you do during your free time from game development?
Okay, when I'm not, like, working on games and stuff, I'm either working on Broadside, because it's more of, like, a film project. Either that, or I am kind of just, like, outside. I don't really do a whole lot in the house. I don't really have many hobbies outside of the computer, so, like, I just kind of relax most of the time. It kind of depends on what kind of day it is, but most of the time I'm up here working on either Broadside or PolarDread.
All right, this next one is from Sour Dreamer. Do you play games outside of creating games, and if so, which ones?
Okay, I don't really play it a whole lot. My favorite type of games are other VR games. So, like, if there's a new release on the Quest Store, for instance, I almost immediately pick it up if I can. It kind of depends on what it is, though, because, like, there's been some that I've looked into that have just been total trash that I've stayed away from, but others have been really good, so I often look into getting those first.
Gotcha. All right, this next one it's an interesting one from Michael Bot 300. Which Mario enemy looks cute in a yellow raincoat? My picks will be Boo, Babam, Koopa Troopa, and Shy Guy, but what's yours? Interesting question.
That is a very specific question. I guess the boos, they're cool, I guess. I like the design. I guess they would fit in a yellow raincoat.
Yeah,
It's such a very specific question.
It is. This is probably one of the most unique questions I've ever gotten for this show. So, if I had to pick, I don't know, I'd say probably the Boo as well, because like,
Yeah.
you know, a ghost wearing a raincoat, you don't want the ghost to get wet, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That makes sense. Anyway, our next one is from Close Manatee. Do you like the original version of Dream Come True / did you want to finish the game?
Horrible. I hate it. Never touching that again. It was so bad. Like before the Breaking the Magic that you played, there was actually like another version. It was even worse somehow. Like there's only one enemy, which is Mickey. He comes to the door on occasion, and you just hold shift until a radio comes on, and then he leaves. That's literally all I ever finished of the gameplay, aside from like one other mechanic. It was a dumpster fire, and I never want to go back to it.
Well, if the stuff from the original Dream Come True hadn't gotten leaked, would you have finished the game?
Oh wait, the original Dream Come True. I thought you meant the old Breaking the Magic before that one.
Wait, did I say original version of Breaking the Magic? I can't. I may have misspoke.
Oh, okay. Old version of Dream Come True. So, I don't know. I would have finished it actually, and I don't think I've ever told anyone this. I actually have a version of the MFA that has all of the characters from all 5 nights already programmed in. I just never actually got around to exporting it. I remember once I tweeted at Wendy saying, if you like this tweet, I will finish Dream Come True. And they actually liked it, but I forgot to actually finish it. So, like, I've let Wendy's down, unfortunately.
Oh, man, there goes your free Baconator.
I know, right? So sad.
But, hey, I mean, the reason for canceling it because everything got leaked, that's fair. You know, I think that's an understandable
There's nothing
reason.
really left, really.
All right, so our next question is from Cubby2002. What is the story behind the Dream Come True games? That's something I've been kind of curious about as well, because it's kind of vague.
Okay, there's like bits of a story, but for the most part, I was 11 when I started working on it, so I just kind of made it up as I went along, and it was a dumpster fire. So I think it starts with like tunes that are locked up in like some sort of containment facility, and they're like experimenting on them and everything. Then they begin to like deteriorate, and that's where all the seams and stuff come in. It's like the people trying to like stitch them back together. It's stupid, I know, but like this is what I came up with when I was 11. And then after they're all stitched together and everything, they get abandoned because they all escape into like a museum in the woods, and this museum is where the first game takes place in. It's like an old Walt Disney museum. And then meanwhile on Treasure Island, because that's just randomly part of the story now, Henry just died in Pirate Caverns, but then he's in like a purgatory of sorts, and that's where Art of Animation takes place. Art of Animation is a whole other beast because Henry's body is actually moving around while he's unconscious, which is why the elevator cutscene in Night 4 happens, where he's like reaching through the top of it. And then the toons somehow escape and then reform into the characters in sketches. I don't know the logic here. They escape into the building that's in sketches, which I don't even know what the building is. It's just obligatory FNAF building. We'll call it the obligatory FNAF building. They escape into there.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't even know what Dream Come True's lore was. I knew it ended with pipes bursting and leaking all over the place, but I don't even remember the lore significance of that one. It's a total mess, to say the least. I made it up all on the fly. It wasn't very good.
You want me to get technical for a second?
Yeah, totally.
When you say that it was a dumpster fire and like you made up the story as you go along, that's how all stories are, man. Like all stories are made up as you go along. That's how it is. So people aren't going to judge you for making up the story as you go along, because that's
it's a good point.
Because with my books, like the books that I've written, especially the one that because it's for people who don't know, I also have written a few books, and the very first book that I actually was able to get published, it was called The Legend of Roger. And it was, it's not bad, but it's definitely a book that you can tell was written by a 13-year-old. and
Yeah.
the story just is all over the place. And my dad, I give him credit, he helped me through that book. Like, he helped me edit it and try to make it a little more cohesive, because of, obviously, a 13-year-old's not going to be able to, at least for me, like, I wasn't able to, because nowadays when I'm writing a story, I think of all the different factors, like, how am I going to make this at least somewhat realistic? How is this going to be a plot hole? How is this going to work? You know, but back then I just wasn't thinking about all that, and I kind of just wrote as I went along, and the story just kind of just happened, and I just wrote it,
Yeah.
and then I went back through it. I'm like, I look back on it now, and I'm like, this makes no sense. So, one particular scene that I remember writing was the main character and his friends are fighting the main villain. And there's a scene right near the beginning of the book that the main villain gets corrupted by something. I can't remember even what it is. But he grows to be 1,000 feet tall. And so later on, they confront the villain in, like, the city. And I don't even remember what city it's even based in. That's another detail that my 13-year-old mind did not think about, is, like, where are these people from? Like, where does this story take place? I didn't say, at least in the original draft. And so they fight the villain, and there's a paragraph where it says, where the main character jumps up and slashes this, like, button on the villain's thigh. And I'm like, but the villain's 1,000 feet tall. So you're telling me that he jumped 300 feet in the air to slash the thigh? That's the type of thing that's the type of writing in that book. And it's like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. It's just kind of all over the place.
Yeah, but luckily my more recent books are better written, to say the least. But anyway,
totally.
point is, the entire point I'm trying to make here is that stories are made up as they go along. As when everybody's writing a story, they're making up the story. So don't feel judged, but with a story you came up with when you were 11. You know, sometimes it'd be like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so back on topic. This is the last one on the community tab. This is from a bid. What is your favorite FNAF fan game?
I don't know really. So, like, I haven't played FNAF fan games in a while and haven't really kept up with it. But I will say, Oblivious Casa. I got to beta test it like a couple months back. It's been a little while since I've actually been able to touch it, but like graphically, it's stunning, and gameplay wise, it's just it's so different, but like in a good way. Like I don't want to go too much into details about it yet because like it's not released and I don't want to leak anything. But it was really good from what I tried.
Is that the sequel to Fnaf 2020?
Yeah, that one.
Oh, the Radiance one. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, I'll have to give it a try when it comes out. It sounds cool. Yeah. All right, well, that'll do it for the community tab questions. We're moving on to Twitter. So our first one is from the homie Chaos. Have you considered making VR games in any other genres aside from horror/FNAF fan games? Also, what advice would you give to someone looking into making a VR game?
Okay, so I've kind of like considered making games that are outside of the typical like horror sphere. I've considered one that was like comedy based a while ago, but I never really went through with it just 'cause I didn't have the resources on me to actually make it happen. In terms of like advice and stuff I would give to people, I would definitely say the best thing you want to do first before you get into actually like getting the graphics and everything done is always start with the programming, because I've had so many instances where I've like had like this character model made and then I go to program it in, realize that the program I want to do doesn't actually work. I mess around with the node editor a little bit more and I just find out that it's just impossible to actually make it work properly. So I have this useless character model done that I have to find another way to integrate it in. So you should always start with programming before you move into assets, just because VR is so finicky, you know. Very hard to program for.
Gotcha. All right. Well, anybody who's trying to make VR games, take that advice. Keep it in mind. This next one is from Nintendo Boy. Or wait, is this Nintendo Boy? No, this is Nintendo Boy. Okay, he changed his username. It confused me on Twitter. Right. His first question, he has two questions. His first one was making PolarDread more difficult considering it was in VR?
Yes, definitely. So normally what I'd have to do with a FNAF type game is that I have it set up where it's a scrolling left to right office where you just move your mouse to look around. And then I would just plaster all the GUI onto the screen and call it a day. But with PolarDread, it's a bit different because I can't actually have GUI because I don't want to put anything on the player's face. So the substitute that I do for this is I have to make it all watch-based GUI. So like, the power limit and the clock are both displayed on the watch. And then I also have to factor in all the physics of the objects and everything in the room, because it's not just a static render anymore. I have to program each object to be grabbable, able to force grab it. I have to have certain objects trigger events whenever you put them somewhere, like Snark's Eye in Part in Service. If you were to pick it up but then drop it on the floor, it'll trigger a jump scare, basically. So certain objects have to be accounted for. The AI actually has to walk around the map instead of just teleporting from room to room. So I have to account for that as well. Optimization is a big one, because I have to have it run on Quest, which is an Android device. So it has to be heavily optimized and able to run, but also scale up to higher end PCs and everything. And it's a whole mess of things you have to kind of keep on track of. But I think I've done pretty well with it so far.
Yeah, I would say you have, and honestly, like the watch and the way that like the power's on it, the watch is one of my favorite little gimmicks, because it makes sense. Like you just, instead of the time being at like the top right, it's more realistic as you look at your watch and just see what time it is. And my question is, because are you gonna like, one little detail that I would recommend is that on the watch it has just the numbers. Like if it's 1 a.m., it just has the number 1. Have you thought about making it like real time, like some games do? Like you start at 12 o'clock and it goes 12:01, 12:02, 12:03. Have you thought about doing that, or are you just gonna stick with just the numbers?
Well, no, I want to try to leave it with the with like time that's similar to the first couple of FNAF games, because I feel like if I go into like the very specific details of the time and everything, it's gonna leave players like kind of counting down for the end. But the thing that I like about it is when the player is kind of rushing to the last couple encounters of the night and everything. So then they're kind of relying on when the music is gonna start to pick up and then drop off, and that's normally when the night ends, whenever the track ends. So I like having them listen to sound cues and everything.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was just curious. All right, so Nintendo Boy's second question is, are you still proud of your older work?
Not really, no. I like to try and pretend it doesn't exist most of the time, just because I'm not really happy with how most of it turned out.
Hey, you should view it as compared to where you are now. It shows your growth.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, this next one is from Grayson the Kid. He has 3 questions. So the first one is, what is your favorite genre of games?
I love horror. Horror is like everything to me. It's so much fun to mess around with most of the time, because it plays on the expectations of not knowing what to expect, and I love that aspect of most horror games. The unpredictability, which is also why I'm not really a big fan of games where they kind of drop that whole aspect and have it just be like... I think Dark Deception is a big example of that. It's just very typical. You kind of always know what to expect, so nothing really catches me off guard while I play. Stuff like that I'm not really a big fan of. But if it's done well, I love horror.
Oh yeah, me too. I remember, because compared to 6-7 years ago, at this point it's been 7 years, actually it was late 2014 when I first started trying to get into horror. I remember I was actually scared of playing the first FNAF game. Like, I was legitimately scared, and it wasn't until I'd say, well, when was that first video? It must have been like October or November. I can't remember, because I think I first started playing the original FNAF, and then FNAF 2 came out, and I played FNAF 2 before I even finished FNAF 1. So that was back when I first started it. But I remember my friend Tripster60, who I'm still in contact with to this day. Like, he's like the OG. Like, he was one of the first guys that ever was like consistently commented on my videos, and so it's crazy how long that's been. But he dared me to play FNAF, and I was like, okay, all right, I'll do it. And I was legitimately scared. And it's crazy, because nowadays I'm rarely scared of games, horror games and stuff. Like, I could play through Outlast and not be scared at all. But then again, I've played that game 5,000 times. But if there are still a few every now and then. Have you played the demo of that game called the 9 Child Street?
I haven't actually, but I've heard it's really good.
That game is freaky, dude. I don't know what it was about it, but if you watch my video on it, like, I was legitimately freaked out. I don't know why. Like, it's your typical, like, abandoned haunted house type game, but there was something about like the presentation on the atmosphere that
Totally.
it nailed the horror.
Yeah,
Like I haven't.
presentation's kind of everything when it comes to this sort of thing.
It is, and it had. I think what gave it some spice is. Have you ever played the game Among the Sleep?
Oh, I love that game.
It is a good game, and mostly what makes that game great is you're playing as a toddler, so everything is gigantic. Everything is so much bigger than it would be if you're playing as like an adult. And I think it nails that same kind of presentation in Nine Child Street because you're playing as like a young kid, like, you know, 7 or 8 years old, and things are kind of like slanted, and there's a very interesting view on everything in the game, if that makes sense. And it's,
I get that.
And I don't know, man, there was something about it that really freaked me out. And I have missed those kind of horror games. Like I want to play more of those where like I'm legitimately scared. Like I really like those types of games. So but yeah, horror is definitely my favorite as well. So Grayson's second question is if you like or have played the Spider-Man games for PlayStation, what are some characters that you would like to see return to Marvel's Spider-Man 2?
I unfortunately haven't actually played those yet. I don't think I've touched their PlayStation in like a good while.
Yeah, I never got to play the Marvel Spider-Man game, and because I don't have a PlayStation, and I wish that they would bring that to PC because they did that with God of War, and I really want them to do that with Spider-Man. Like I love Spider-Man. You know, Spider-Man No Way Home is one of my favorite movies of all time, and I would love to, you know, be Spider-Man on the PC, but I guess it's going to be PlayStation exclusive, which sucks. But
yeah,
who knows? Maybe I'll go to PlayStation at some point.
Yeah, here's to hoping.
So, all right, his last question is, what is your favorite game that you have made? I hope you have an amazing week.
Okay, I think my favorite game that I've made is... It's definitely either PolarDread or the Broadside Beach game that I'm working on, which there's not really much info about yet that I can't really say, but it's my favorite flat screen game I've made, and PolarDread is definitely my favorite VR game, at least as of now.
Gotcha. All right. So this next one is from, I think it's pronounced Sage? Sage? Okay. I'm not sure how that's pronounced.
Oh, that's my partner, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
All right. Well, they've got 4 questions. What do you plan on doing after PolarDread is done?
Well, I want to try to move on to like original projects and stuff. I know that every fan game developer ever has said this, but like, I feel like PolarDread only having like a couple levels that are themed after like the night shift and everything, and then like 10 or so more levels that are themed around other things. I think that is going to be a nice way to kind of step out of the whole sit and survive genre and kind of do something new with it. So I feel like after that, I want to move into like more original horror games. Maybe like games with like big campaigns and everything, like Half-Life. That was a good one. I love that one. So like, I'd love to do something kind of in that same sort of vein.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, the next question is, what inspired you to make VR games, and have you ever tried to make PC games?
I've tried to do PC games back in like when I was doing like Click Team and everything. That went disastrously, as we all know, but I am kind of working on the Nintendo 64 style game as well, which it's technically PC because you run it on a PC instead of like using VR and everything for it. And I'd say it's definitely a step in the right direction. But I started doing VR games in the first place because I don't know, I just wanted to try it out because I had a VR headset lying around and I figured I would give it a shot. So yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Their next question is, how did you come up with Breaking the Magic?
Oh, God. Okay, so it started a while ago when I was like, I think it was like mid-2016, and I was listening to like Disney creepypastas because I was still obsessed with Fnaf at the time, and I remember hearing about one about them keeping this old Mickey costume at the, I don't know if you've seen it. It's like the one in the old Mickey costume pictures and everything, if you were to search it up. It looks horrible, but the idea is that it was inside of the park still, and it was chasing people down. And they mentioned the term breaking the magic at one point in the video, so it's like, there's my next game right there. So, yeah, that's where that idea came from.
That's interesting. I would never have known that. So, well, now we all know.
Yeah.
All right, and their last question is, will PolarDread ever get a DLC?
Well, this is actually something I've considered. I was working on a Halloween DLC for it last year, but it was going to be like a little external game that you could get off like itch.io or something like that. But it never really got around to getting finished. Sage actually designed like anime AI, like characters, like character designs and stuff, which looks really good. But like, that never actually got around to being finished because we ran out of time before Halloween and everything. But I am considering bringing it back this year if I can. It kind of depends on if PolarDread itself actually gets finished though this year, which I'm hoping it does.
Gotcha. All right. Our next one is from Damien Gamer 727. What inspired you to become a developer?
Okay, I remember it was like I don't even remember. I think it was like very early in 2016 when I was like looking at all these FNAF games coming out. I remember the first game I played was friggin' Springtrap Simulator. I thought that one was like awesome at the time. But I remember playing all these games and I was like, I want to make one of these. So I started in PowerPoint, as all humble FNAF fan game developers do. It's either PowerPoint or Scratch. And we made these horrible games. And then one day I was like, you know what, this sucks. I want to get a better game engine. So like I looked into all the options and stuff. And somehow my mind, my ass backward mind was just like, I think ClickTeam is going to work for this. I think it's perfect. So I spent $100, bought ClickTeam.
$100?
Worst mistake of my life.
My goodness.
ClickTeam is $100. Like you can search it up. It's $100. It is a total ripoff. I would never use it again if I could, but it was $100. So like I was like, no, this looks good, and Scott used it, so it must be good, right?
Yeah. So if Scott uses a program, it must be good.
Yeah. Little did I know, I should not have trusted him on that one because it was abysmal. I started using the ClickTeam demo back before I actually bought it, but ClickTeam's demo only let you use like 3 frames. I'm not making that up. You can only use 3 levels in the entire demo, and then it would just tell you to buy the full version. So I did.
Like those freaking app demos that like let you play like one level or like part of one level, and it's like buy the full game. It's like,
please
no,
buy it. We're desperate. Yeah, that's how I started with game development. I bought ClickTeam, and it was the worst mistake of my life. But I wish I started it with Unreal instead. That would have been so much better.
You want to know a fun fact?
Yeah.
Back in 2015, I tried ClickTeam for like 5 minutes because because I had a random inspiration to try and make my own game. I don't know where this inspiration came from. It might have been Five Nights at Wario's. I don't remember what exactly it was, but I got the demo, I think, and I opened it up and I look around at this program and I'm like, what the hell is this? And I'm thinking, and it didn't go through my mind that I needed to learn like a whole bunch of stuff, like how to code, how to integrate images, how to code everything to work together as a game. Like I didn't recognize or realize that I had to do that. And I think that's something that a lot of people don't really consider. You know, they don't really think about that, is when somebody's making a game, all of that goes in there. Like the biggest example that I cite when I talk about how much effort goes into making a game and even coding just one little certain thing in games. I sat there and watched Mickey code Pigsty's mechanic in Five Nights at Bud Rebooted. And the way that, for those who don't know, Pigsty in that game, Pigsty is a good friend of mine. He's a well-known voice actor, but he's in Five Nights at Bud as a character. And his mechanic revolves around him playing VR, specifically Beat Saber. And there are certain points in the night where you hear him talk, like say, like, all right, next song, and you go to his camera, and there's a certain sequence of arrows on his keyboard to kind of reminiscent of the way that you swipe up, down, left, or right in Beat Saber to cut the blocks. And so that was represented by the arrows on his TV. So you had to go to his camera and then press the arrow keys on your keyboard to do the right sequence. And that And that was probably, from what I remember at the time, one of the hardest things that Mickey has ever had to code. Watching him do it was a headache. And it really opened my eyes to how complicated making games is. And how you need to know how to code, you need to know how to make things work to code. Like, it's it's hard for me to even like describe what I was watching. Like when I say like, oh, you know how to code things. Well, I don't even know how to describe how to code because I don't know. But I will say that like just watching him do it really showed me just how difficult it is to make games.
I think with Unreal Engine it's a little more manageable than ClickTeam, because the way it works is that instead of it being like a giant graph with everything scattered around, each individual object has its own code that you put into it, and it works like a flowchart almost. Like at the start of the game, if it triggers this event, it does this, and it basically works like a giant line where it goes from code to code to code, and triggers all these different events. Makes things a lot easier on the coders normally, but things can still kind of be a headache. Like the mole guy, for instance, he took so long, so you have to pick a random spot to walk to, but any object that can make a noise, like the heads or the bottles that you smash, always has to trigger an event where he comes running straight to the room and tries to wait outside your door. And actually programming each object to make a loud sound that would lure him in, it was a nightmare. I would never do that again if I could.
Well, I will say he did a good job designing him because he's terrifying. Because like it makes you not want to make any noise, because the way he'll like run up to the door and just like wait there. And I wouldn't say this is a spoiler, but there's a particular minigame in PolarDread that involves the mole, and you have to like walk around in the basement. And I was playing.
Terrifying.
That's the scariest thing I have ever done in VR up to this point. And I remember because those bottles are fragile. Like I remember what caused him to come in and kill me. I had a bottle in my hand and I got to one of those fuse boxes that you have to open. And so I wanted to put the bottle down on the floor and then like have two free hands to do whatever. And so I just placed the bottle on the floor and it shatters. And so and he comes in and like I didn't, because I saw him coming, but I didn't know which direction he was, so I kind of wanted to move over to the corner of the room, and I turn and he's just there, like a foot away from me, and I audibly screamed, and that is not like normally in videos these days, like when something jump scares me, I'm just like whoa, or like I don't, but this time I legitimately shouted, like that's
awesome,
and because he was like right in my face, and that's the beauty of VR, is that
it's horrifying.
It's like it's right there, and but yeah, he's really scary. So for anybody who's going to be playing PolarDread, if you have a VR and want to play that, you have been warned. He is not friendly. Hopefully I can get that video out, because I was telling Adam before we started recording this, I did have a recording of Tuesday and Wednesday and some of the extra levels in PolarDread that are in there so far, and I recorded it on my headset, but on my girlfriend's account, because we share accounts so we can share games with each other, so we don't have to spend a bunch of money having to re-download the games on our own devices. And I recorded the gameplay with the PolarDread on her account, and so for some reason my computer does not want to recognize my VR headset when it's on her account, but when I go back to my account, it recognizes it, so it's very strange. So hopefully I can get that recording off of there somehow, and then edit it, but if I have to re-record it, I will.
All right.
Anyway, this next one is from Fusion505. Where did the name Squeaks come up from?
Okay, so it was from an older character that I made back in like 2019. I wanted to kind of like make a character that I would use everywhere that would kind of like hint at the exact opposite of what my games work. So I always want to make something like dark and scary, but I want to have like a kind of like cute looking character just in the front of it, just like, hey, listen, don't listen to this character. Despite how it looks, this game is going to terrify you. So I wanted to have a kind of like subversion of expectations. So that's kind of where this character's name came from.
Ah, gotcha. Very interesting.
Yeah.
All right. These are our last questions on Twitter. It's from Craigston, and he has Saw No Way Home in his username. That's based.
Yeah.
Okay, so there must be some kind of inside jokes in some of these questions, so you'll probably have to explain what's going on in a couple of these. The first one is, when will you get back to work on you-know-what?
Okay, he's working on a project with me, but I've been busy with PolarDread and stuff lately. I don't want to go too much into detail about what it is yet, but it is loosely related to Broadside, as I mentioned earlier. So I've been busy with stuff, but I do want to get back to it soon.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
His next one is, how much more content do you plan on for Hotel 9?
Okay, Hotel 9 is it's part of Broadside for context. If you're wondering what that is, it's not like a new project. It's like an episode in it, but I'm hoping it's going to be at least 20 minutes long. That's my goal right now.
All right. His next one is, how is Firecat doing?
Okay, for context, Firecat is like a really good pal of mine, and he's also the animator in PolarDread. So a good chunk of the animations that you see in that game were done by him. Like Perry's crawling animation, he's in the vent and everything. He did that. From my knowledge, he's been doing really well, actually. Yeah, I spoke to him just before this interview, actually.
Gotcha. Okay. Next question is, remake of Dream Come True when?
Never.
Never
going to happen.
And this last one, are you still the best animator, Adam?
No. No. Let's not do that.
Okay. We'll move on. Okay, that does it for our Twitter questions. Let's move on to Discord. So our first one here is from Picky and Squiddy. He's got a question about Dream Come True and a week at Castaway Cay, or more so about a character. What is the James suit supposed to be made of?
It's also made out of like straw and hay and all that stuff. I think I said it in one of the cutscenes in Dream Come True, but it's made out of like straw and hay, and there's like a body slipped inside.
What is this? This is the boat version of Dream Come True, right?
Yeah, the boat version.
The one that I voice acted in. I must have. I probably was the one that explained that in game because I was the voice actor for that. It's been long enough to where I forgot what I recorded for that. It's been like 3 years.
4 years, man.
Or longer than that. Yeah. Okay. This next one is from Mr. Waffles. Were you planning on having your games on other platforms before you settle with the VR?
Not really. I always kind of wanted PolarDread to be like a VR game. It just kind of built from the ground up to be in VR. I don't really want to put it on a PC or anything. All
right, gotcha. Our next one is from Mon Makes 2. What are your thoughts on some horror reboots?
I don't think that there's been like a single good horror reboot in my entire lifespan. It's just every horror reboot is just like, I think it starts off with a trailer just like, oh, they're coming back after all this time, and it's just super underwhelming. It's like the equivalent of like a Star Wars sequel, but like for horror. I've never liked it really.
I've heard that the new Scream is pretty good, but I have yet to see it. I have yet to see it, but I've heard it's pretty good. And apparently, from what I saw, it made $100 million worldwide, and they're already talking about a sequel. Like they've already greenlit a sequel. So I don't.
That's impressive, actually.
That'll make it really confusing if they called that Scream 2, because
totally.
Because the new Scream is technically a Scream 5, because all the other Scream movies are canon in this timeline. So if they call it Scream 2, it's like, well, no, there's already a Scream 2 in this timeline. Like, well, how like
Scream 2.5?
Because I was confused that they went that route, because you got Scream 1 through 4, and then you have the fifth one being the same name as the original, and I originally thought that they were going the Halloween 2018 route, where it was a direct sequel to the original, but ignored all the other sequels. But apparently it doesn't. All the other sequels are canon, but it's just called Scream really again. That's very confusing. They had a golden opportunity to put because the Scream logo, the M. Like the middle of the M like goes down, like it has like a sharp middle to it, if that makes sense. Yeah. And I thought maybe that represents a knife. I don't know, but they missed a perfect opportunity to make the middle of that M red, so it would be the Roman numeral 5 inside the M.
I never actually thought about that. That's clever.
Yeah, they missed a really nice opportunity to do that, in my opinion.
Shame on them.
Yeah, but. Yeah, I just feel like that'll confuse some people when the fifth movie is the exact same name as the original. But I don't know. Maybe if they put Scream parentheses 2022 and then Scream 1996, I guess that'll differentiate them. But it's still confusing. All right, this next one is from Weed Chips. Looking back on the Breaking the Magic games, which one is your quote-unquote favorite of them all, and do you ever want to go back and remake them someday? I assume that's no, but
No.
but
I
do you have a favorite?
I'm repulsed by all of them, but the original one is definitely my favorite, just because it was so unique for its time, I think. The addition of strobe lights killing off epileptic players was definitely a very fun little addition to the game. And I don't know, just at the time, everything was so new to me, so I had a lot of fun while making it. And that's probably why I have such fond memories of actually putting it together. I just don't really like the game itself.
I remember really liking the morphine mechanic. And
I thought that was a good mechanic.
But, you know, if you look at it realistically, if you injected that amount of morphine into your body, you would probably die. But
I didn't know what I was thinking. It's just like
it's a FNAF game. It's video game logic. But yeah, I mean, if you look at it,
your player doesn't actually have a body. They're just a floating camera. It's all okay.
It's fine. But yeah, if you because like if you were to if you took the last night in that game, the hardest night, and just like looked at how much morphine that you were injecting into yourself, I want to know if that's like if anybody could survive that, because I doubt it. But
that'd be a total dumpster fire.
Oh man, it would. All right, this next one is again from Piggy and Squiddy. Well, he asked what gave you the idea for Breaking the Magic and your other projects. You already explained your inspiration for Breaking the Magic. What was your inspiration for some of the other ones? If you had inspirations for the sequels or anything else?
Not really. I just wanted to kind of keep things chugging along with the with how it was going about it the first time around. I just wanted to kind of, you know, I wanted to kind of keep it alive for the time being, so that it was a cool concept at the time.
All right. Our next one is from Ob Marshall. How hard was it to get a game onto the Quest/Quest 2?
It cost me my soul, basically. So I started out with I tried porting the game in its exact PC VR state onto the Quest to see how it would run. There was no lighting, first of all. You could not see anything. And apparently the reason for this is because you actually have to bake the lighting in doing it on Quest, but on PC it's all dynamic, so you can get shadows and stuff. So that was the first kind of glaring issue. Then I realized that the poly count is too high for the camera screen to render and everything. So it would run at 30 frames per second, which is very disorienting in VR when you're trying to hit 70 at least.
Right.
Then I realized that the character models were way too high poly, because I was using the old ones and not the new ones, the remodels. So they were all sitting at 40,000 vertices each with no optimization on them, and it was running horribly. So I naturally had to fix that. After I was done optimizing those, I had to kind of come back around and optimize the set a little bit more so that it ran better. I had to configure it for Android, and then came the part where I had to interact with Meta, trying to get my game onto their store, which is a whole other beast in and of itself, because I had to keep sending my betas in of the game, and they'd always reject it for something so tiny. I remember one point, it got rejected because I forgot to add in one part of the privacy policy that they can delete their data if they feel like it. And that took another 2 weeks for them to review again. So I submitted it in October, and they finally released it on the store in December. It was a mess.
Well, I'm sure it was worth it in the end to
kind of.
Kind of.
Yeah.
All right, this next one is from Morg VA. Markiplier or game theory? Oh boy, this is going to be controversial. I can just tell.
Oh god, I'm gonna lose my head over this one. Markiplier is at least funny and has a personality. We'll put it that way.
I've always been kind of mixed on game theory. I do enjoy a lot of his theories. One of my favorites is probably his which Link would win theory. Back in 2012, he put all the Links from Zelda against each other. But that was back in 2012, so that did not count Breath of the Wild Link, and I would think Breath of the Wild Link would just trump everybody because he's got the slowing down time thing. He can slow down time, and that basically just gives him a major advantage. And he's got.
I will say though, I will say all of Game Theory's recent episodes on FNAF and everything are total laughing stocks. His most recent one, I think, he actually went as far as saying that Gregory is the crying child from the second game, but rebuilt as a robot.
I didn't hear the robot part. I heard him saying that like Gregory was the crying child, and while I think that's ridiculous, I will say that from what I know, since Security Breach is a direct sequel to Help Wanted, it's a sequel to Help Wanted, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
From what I know, Help Wanted is a different timeline, right?
Yeah.
So, if you really think about it, maybe Gregory could be the crying child in a different timeline. I don't know.
Maybe.
But like, if you're trying to compare it to the main Fnaf timeline, no, I don't. That's not plausible.
That's what they're saying. They're like, what if Gregory is a robot and then Freddy is actually his brother, and then Vanessa, this living human person, is their sister? And it makes no sense.
That's no. But if we're going with the whole different timeline kind of deal,
it doesn't make more sense.
Could be a little more plausible, but
yeah.
Okay, this next one is from Random. Actually, the last couple questions are from Random. So this first one is, what was your... Yeah, I think... I can't remember if somebody asked this already, but he said, what was your favorite project of yours to work on? And did you say that was PolarDread, or was it something else?
Yeah, it was PolarDread, yeah.
Gotcha, okay. His next one is, do you plan on making any sequels to games that were one-offs?
I don't really know. I've had ideas. Like, I've been jotting down, like, sequel ideas for PolarDread that I might eventually do with a more original format and everything. But they've mostly just stayed as concepts. I don't want to kind of overstep my boundary yet, because I haven't even finished the main game. Alright,
gotcha. And this is his last question. What project of yours do you think you would completely remake in order to improve it?
Well, I mean, I would say a Wicked Castaway Cay, but I'm already kind of doing that as of now. So, I'm not sure, actually, now that I think about it.
Okay, well, I guess we'll all keep an eye on if you do decide to remake any of those. If you were to remake, if you were to remake the Breaking the Magic games, which I know you said you wouldn't, but I would definitely play them if you did. But
I think it'd be kind of fun to like go back. I'm just not sure if I want to keep a little Disney theming and everything.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
All right, well, that concludes the questions. That is everything, and I think I covered everything. I don't think I missed anybody's this time.
Yeah, I think so.
But yeah, I want to thank you, Squeaks, Adam, for joining me on this episode. It was a blast talking to you, man. It was really interesting hearing
you too, man.
The backstory. Once again, if you guys would like to contribute to future GeniusCast episodes, you can comment on my posts regarding these episodes, and if you want to ask a question and be part of these episodes, that's how you do it. I will be linking all of Adam's stuff in the description. I will link his Twitter. Do you have a YouTube channel that you want me to link to?
I do. I moved away from the old one, but I do still have one.
Okay, I'll link that if you'd like.
I'll be sure to send it to you.
And I'll also link PolarDread in the description on the Quest store. If you guys would like to go and check that out, if you've got a VR headset and want to play that, I highly recommend it. It is awesome. And if you'd like to see any gameplay of the Breaking the Magic games, I have got that up on my channel, and I think some other people did some gameplays of that as well. And are A Week at Castaway Cay and the boat Dream Come True, are those still on Game Jolt to play?
Yeah, they're still listed.
Okay, and I'll link those in the description for anybody who's interested in checking those out as well. But that'll do it for episode 2 of the GeniusCast Season 3. And next week, y'all are going to want to stick around for this. I'm going to be interviewing J-Ski Bean, a.k.a. Micro Horror Arcade. So if you guys want to listen in on that, I highly recommend listening to that conversation. It's going to be awesome. But that'll be next week, next Saturday, hopefully, if I can be consistent. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed listening. Again, if you want to check out Adam or any of his projects, all those links will be in the description. If you guys want to check out the first episode or any of the episodes in Season 2, you can go and check those out. All links in the description and on the end cards at the end of this video. So thanks again, Adam, once again for joining me, man. Yep. I will catch you guys next week in the next episode. Have a good morning, afternoon, or evening, everybody. Catch y'all later.